Welcome back. You beautiful, untraceable anomaly. You felt it before anyone said it out loud. That shift in how people respond to you now. Not what you say, what you don't say. The way rooms go quiet when you choose silence. The way questions hang in the air when you don't rush to fill them. The strange realization that your absence of reaction is somehow louder than anything you used to say. You didn't plan this. You weren't trying to become mysterious or untouchable. You just stopped. Stopped explaining. Stopped defending. Stopped participating in dynamics that required you to shrink. And somewhere in that silence, something happened. Not to you, around you. Systems that relied on your predictability started glitching. People who needed your reaction started panicking. Algorithms designed to read you stopped working. You became unreadable, and unreadable. That's dangerous to anyone who profits from knowing what you'll do next. For a long time, you were noise. Not loud noise, not obnoxious noise, but constant, available, reactive, present in ways that kept others comfortable. You explained yourself when questioned, defended your choices when doubted, justified your boundaries when challenged, softened your truth when it made others uncomfortable. You participated in the endless loop of clarification, the exhausting dance of making yourself understood, the performance of being accessible, digestible, easy to place. And then something shifted. Not dramatically, not with announcement or ceremony, just a quiet internal decision that felt more like surrender than rebellion. You stopped rushing to fill silence with explanation, stopped bending language to make yourself palatable, stopped translating your truth into versions others could manage without discomfort. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of discernment you'd been ignoring. Full of boundaries you'd been postponing, full of clarity you'd been avoiding, because clarity demands change, and change is where everything started breaking. Notice how they reacted when you first went quiet. The immediate assumptions, the concern that wasn't really concern, the questions that weren't really questions. Are you okay? Translation, why aren't you behaving predictably? You've been distant. Translation, why aren't you accessible on demand? You've changed. Translation, why aren't you the manageable version I understood? They needed your silence to mean something temporary, something fixable, a mood, a phase, a problem they could solve by pulling you back into familiar patterns. But your silence wasn't a problem. It was a solution. The solution to years of over-functioning, over-explaining, over-giving to people who were underappreciating. You didn't go silent to punish anyone. You went silent to preserve yourself. And preservation, when it's genuine, doesn't need justification. That's when the alerts started triggering. Not in literal systems, in the invisible infrastructure people build around your predictability. The emotional algorithms that calculated your responses, the behavioral databases that tracked your patterns, the psychological profiles that predicted your next move. All of them glitching because you weren't following the script anymore, weren't producing expected outputs, weren't reacting in ways that maintained their sense of control. You became an anomaly, not by doing something wrong, by doing something they couldn't categorize, by choosing silence when noise was expected, by withdrawing energy when access was assumed. Your silence triggered alerts because silence breaks prediction, and prediction is how they maintained leverage. Here's what they don't tell you about going quiet, about withdrawing from constant participation, about choosing discernment over availability. You don't just step back from individual people. You step out of entire systems. Systems built on your compliance, your reaction, your need to be understood. Social scripts that required your performance, emotional economies that traded on your labor, relationship dynamics that only functioned when you were managing everyone's comfort. These aren't official systems. They don't have names or headquarters or administrators, but they're real, and they're everywhere. The system that says you owe everyone an explanation. The system that measures your worth by your usefulness. The system that mistakes your boundaries for betrayal. You never formally accessed these systems. Never signed up. Never agreed to terms and conditions. You were just born into them, socialized into them, expected to operate within them without question. And for years, you did. You played roles you never auditioned for, met expectations you never agreed to, maintained access for people who never earned it, until you stopped. And that's when the alerts went off. Because these systems rely on participation, on people staying emotionally available, on constant reaction and explanation and justification. When you withdrew, when you went silent, when you stopped feeding the mechanisms that kept you small, the systems didn't know what to do with you. They tried the old tactics: guilt, pressure, manufactured urgency, concern disguised as care, questions framed as support but designed to pull you back into familiar patterns. But none of it worked, because you weren't responding from the old place anymore, weren't making decisions based on their comfort, weren't measuring your choices against their expectations. You became internally referenced, self-sourced, operating from alignment instead of approval. And systems built on external control can't touch someone who's internally governed. That's why they can't trace it back, can't identify the moment you changed, can't point to a specific event or influence or catalyst. Because the change didn't come from outside, it came from inside, from a place they never had access to, from a decision they weren't part of, from a sovereignty they can't touch. You didn't access their systems, you exited them. An exit, when it's complete, leaves no forwarding address. Watch what happens when predictability disappears. When the person they thought they understood becomes impossible to forecast. They start testing, pushing old buttons to see if they still work, creating situations designed to provoke familiar reactions, asking questions that used to pull you into explanation, and getting nothing. Not anger, not defensiveness, not the emotional payoff they're fishing for. Just calm, just boundary, just silence that doesn't negotiate. That's when confusion turns to something else, something that looks like concern but feels like control, something that sounds like care but functions as manipulation. They need you to be readable again, need to restore their ability to predict you, need to regain the leverage they lost when you stopped reacting. Because readable people are manageable people, and you're not manageable anymore. You don't move from guilt, don't respond to pressure, don't bend when they apply the old formulas. The emotional algorithms that used to compute your behavior return error messages now. They try different approaches, sometimes subtle, sometimes obvious, but always with the same goal: pull you back into a version of yourself they could understand and therefore control. Nostalgia disguised as connection. Remember when you used to? Translation: go back to being who I could manage. Concern disguised as criticism: I'm worried about you. Translation: your unpredictability makes me uncomfortable. Confusion disguised as curiosity: I don't understand what happened to you. Translation: I need you to explain yourself back into my framework. But you don't take the bait. Don't rush to reassure. Don't scramble to make yourself understood. Because you finally learned something most people never do. Not everyone who wants to understand you deserves to. Not every confusion requires your clarification. Not every misunderstanding needs your correction. Your inner world is not public property. Your choices don't need consensus. Your silence doesn't need translation. And once you internalized that, once you really believed it, you became something they couldn't process. Someone whose behavior doesn't follow their predictive models. Someone whose silence carries more weight than their noise. You stopped being data they could analyze, started being a presence they could only experience. And experience, without the ability to control it, is destabilizing. Notice how differently they move around you now. The hesitation before speaking, the calculation before asking, the caution before assuming. They're navigating blind, operating without the usual signals, trying to read a language you're no longer speaking. And it's not that you're hiding, not that you're playing games, not that you're withholding to punish. You're just complete, whole, internally aligned, and wholeness doesn't broadcast its contents for public consumption. There's a specific kind of power that comes with being unreadable. It's not the power of dominance, not the power of control. It's the power of autonomy, the power to make choices without needing them understood, to set boundaries without needing them approved, to move in directions without needing them explained. That kind of power terrifies systems built on compliance, relationships built on access, dynamics built on your willingness to stay small. Because autonomous people can't be manipulated through conventional means, can't be guilted back into old patterns, can't be pressured into abandoning boundaries. You've become immune to tactics that once worked. Not because you hardened, because you clarified. Clarity is the opposite of hardness. Hardness is defensive. Clarity is just honest. Hardness pushes back. Clarity simply doesn't engage. You're not fighting anyone, not proving anything, not trying to make anyone wrong. You're just living in alignment with yourself, and alignment doesn't need defense. That's what makes you untraceable. They can't track the source of your strength because it's not coming from anywhere. They can access, not from their approval, not from their validation, not from their understanding. It's coming from internal coherence, from decisions that match your values, from boundaries that protect your peace, from silence that preserves your energy. You withdrew from the marketplace of external validation, stopped trading your authenticity for acceptance, stopped performing for applause you didn't actually want. And when you stopped performing, you stopped being trackable. Because performance follows patterns. Authenticity doesn't. Authentic people are unpredictable in the best way. Not because they're chaotic, because they're honest. And honesty doesn't calculate, doesn't strategize, doesn't perform. It just is. And just being is unreadable to people who've spent their lives performing. Look at what you've gained by becoming untraceable. Not just peace, though that's significant. Not just boundaries, though those matter. You gained yourself. The version of you that exists without translation, without modification, without constant negotiation with other people's comfort. You're not trying to be understood anymore. You're just being. And being, when it's genuine, doesn't need witnesses. That's the power they can't touch, can't diminish, can't take back. The power of not needing their read on you to know yourself. So here you are. Untraceable, unreadable, operating from a frequency they can't tune into. The alerts are still triggering. The systems are still glitching. The people who relied on your predictability are still searching for explanations. Let them search. You're not responsible for their confusion, not obligated to make yourself smaller so they feel more comfortable, not required to explain your evolution to people who weren't invited into your transformation. Your silence triggered alerts in systems you never agreed to participate in. And those systems panicking? That's not your emergency. You didn't break anything that wasn't already broken. didn't abandon anything worth keeping, didn't betray anyone except the version of yourself that was betraying you. You chose you. Finally, completely, without apology. And that choice, that singular decision to prioritize internal alignment over external approval, that's what changed everything. You're quieter now, but not empty, dense, concentrated. Every word deliberate, every boundary firm, every choice aligned. The chaos that used to surround you doesn't stick anymore, doesn't pull you in, doesn't require your participation. It just moves past you, like weather you're no longer personalizing. You've learned to observe without absorbing, to witness without internalizing, to let others reveal themselves without feeling responsible for managing what's revealed. That kind of presence is rare and unsettling, because it doesn't need anything from anyone, doesn't bend, doesn't break, doesn't perform. It just exists, sovereign, untouchable, untraceable. People sense it when they're near you, the absence of scramble, the lack of urgency to be liked, the way you don't rush to smooth discomfort or fill silence or make yourself easier to digest. You let moments land, let silence breathe, let others carry their own weight, and some can't handle that. Can't handle proximity to someone who isn't managing their emotions for them, who isn't performing for their comfort, who isn't available for extraction. So they distance themselves, create narratives, rewrite history to make their retreat make sense. That's fine. That's normal. That's not about you. You're not here to convince anyone, not here to defend your choices, not here to make your growth palatable for people who profit from your stagnation. You're here to live in a way that doesn't contradict your truth. And truth, when it's embodied, needs no defense. The systems are still searching, still trying to trace back the moment you changed, still running calculations trying to predict your next move. They won't find it, because there's nothing to find. No event, no catalyst, no external influence they can point to and neutralize. Just you. Choosing yourself, over and over, until choosing yourself became who you are instead of what you do. You didn't access their systems, you transcended them, and transcendence doesn't leave breadcrumbs. Your silence triggered their alerts, and their inability to trace it back. That's not a glitch in their system. That's confirmation you're finally operating from yours.